2023 was a great year for gaming. And with all of those gigantic releases behind us, it's time to look at some of the other games that came out in 2023. I've also picked some pretty diverse games. They span a few genres, so there's likely something here for you. And the first game on this list is an action puzzle game called Cocoon. Players take on the role of what looks like a cicada with legs, and they'll go through areas to solve puzzles. But within these puzzles, there's clearly a larger narrative going on. It's a silent narrative, and I love those. So instead of using any dialogue or lore entries, the game is using environmental design and art to tell its story. The controls for Cocoon are very simple. You basically just run your character around with the joystick and you use one button to interact with things. The puzzles are paced very well, so they're really simple at the beginning, but they get a little more complex as things go on. But one thing I really enjoyed about Cocoon is that you'll go between worlds and you also carry these worlds with you as you play the game. You gain new abilities, you get through the game, and the game gets cooler and more complex as you move through it. Not only is Cocoon a solid game to have on your handheld console, it's also really easy to just pick up and put down because it's not too complex, but it is very engaging. The next game on this list is called AKxolotl, or maybe it's AKxolotl. It's a play on words because you play as an axolotl in this game, but the catch is that you're running through the forest fighting woodland creatures with heavy machine guns. But don't worry, the woodland creatures also have heavy weaponry to defend themselves with. It's all fair game. AKxolotl is a twin-stick shooter that's gonna feel familiar for anybody who's played Enter the Gungeon. But AKxolotl also borrows from Hades in that it lets you choose what kind of room you go to after you've cleared the one you're in. By the way, those are two solid games to pull inspiration from, Hades and Enter the Gungeon. If you haven't played those games, make sure you play those after you play these. Anyway, as you move through AKxolotl, as you get farther and farther on your runs, you're gonna unlock new things, new weapons that you'll find in future runs, as well as other axolotls to hatch and raise as your very own. Of course, each axolotl has perks of their very own, so it's worth it for you to make sure that they're happy, they're taken care of, so that they can grow big and strong and run through the forest with a heavy machine gun just like you did. What I'm saying is that they become playable as you raise them. It goes without saying, but this game is very silly, so if you like silly games that have sneaky good gameplay, then AKxolotl's perfect for you. Dredge is an atmospheric fishing adventure that takes place on the open seas. You play as a fisherman who just had their boat wrecked on some rocks at a town that they were going to anyway, so it's awfully convenient. And from there, you spend your days fishing, filling up your boat with fish, selling them to people, and learning more about the inhabitants of the islands that you'll fish around. Dredge is very heavy on its narrative. This game has a lot to tell you, and it's really well done. The story unfolds as you play the game, as you meet new people, as you find certain fish. It's a very interesting thing to play. It's relaxing, but also kind of horrifying. The scary part of this game comes when you don't manage your time too well and you wind up out at sea while it's dark. At night, your fisherman starts freaking out. He starts thinking that there's things in the ocean, basically getting very paranoid, so not only will he be bad on sleep, but he'll also go a little crazy. This game balances feeling very cozy to very uncomfortable and unsettling very quickly. And while I haven't gotten through the main campaign yet, there's also an expansion for Dredge called the Pale Reach that just released. The Pale Reach brings the player to a more icy setting, which is perfect for wintertime. I mean, what could be more fun than freezing in some frozen tundras alongside some aquatic horrors that are just waiting for you? And while we're talking about frost and cold things, let's talk about a game called Wildfrost. Wildfrost is a card-building roguelike game that involves card strategy combat. It basically plays like a tabletop card game like Magic the Gathering, and the rules are really simple even though they seem kind of complicated. In between each turn-based card battle, provided you win, you get to choose where you go next on the map. And along your journey, you're gonna find new cards, you're gonna find buffs for your cards that are called charms. Maybe you'll run into a shop that lets you spend some of the gold you found along the way. You are essentially building your deck as you go based on what the game gives you. So it's up to you to find the synergies that work between your cards to make sure that your next battle goes just as smoothly as the last. This game has some of the best animations I've seen in a card game, and those are really important because card games are fun, but they're great when they look cool. Of course, those animations go hand in hand with this game's very nice art style. But don't let that fool you because this game is a little difficult at first. You're gonna have a learning curve, but once you get that learning curve, this game is very gratifying. And although Wildfrost is perfect for short play sessions, you can actually stop a battle midway through and then come back to it later. So you can literally shut the game, play something else, and come back to your battle at a later date. Sometimes you want something a little more linear, a little more straight to the point, something with a grappling grappling hook in it. Well, that's perfect because the last game on this list is called SANABI, and you know that game has a grappling hook in it. So if the grappling hook is the first thing I want you to know about SANABI, then the second thing I want you to know is that this game is narrative heavy and it's kind of sad. And this is only worth noting because I wasn't actually expecting the story in SANABI to be this dense. But in between these well-written narrative segments is a very fun game about jumping through levels with your grappling hook, attacking enemies with your grappling hook, and really getting into a flow. The platforming challenges are like little puzzles that you have to figure out as you're swinging through them. And the combat is more like a dance through the air where you're swinging from area to area and then enemy to enemy as well. Certain enemies need to be attacked in certain ways, and that's only going to get more complex as the game goes on. I'm a huge fan of great pixel art, especially when that pixel art is very well animated, and SANABI is a treat to look at for people like me. So while it'll take you a minute to get used to the grappling hook mechanics and the traversal in SANABI, this game rewards you by making you feel like the coolest person alive while you play it. And again, I can't say this enough times. The story is there and the story is going to make you feel things. And honestly, I love that about this game because it's one thing I wasn't expecting when I turned it on. Speaking of surprises, what was a game that surprised you in 2023? Is there something that came out that you loved that nobody talked about? Let me know in the comments because I want to play it. It would be awesome if the comment section on this video turned into a list of games that came out in 2023 that people need to play. With all that being said, thank you very much for watching my video, and I will see you in the next one.